So exiting the pits, the first thing you need to do is warm up the brakes. This is very important on the outlap. You don't want to scrub the tire too much, because yeah, you need it for lap 2, 3 and 4 when you really want to get the best time. Yeah, warm up the brakes as much as you can without overheating them. You can just push the pedal down every now and then. Don't try to fade the brakes like this for a long time, because you only heat up the front brakes and not the rear. As for my head-up display setup, I disabled everything except the tires, because yeah, depending on the car you drive, you don't always have the tire pressures and temperatures in the car display, like in this case. So you need those. Session timer at the top. I thought about disabling that as well because I don't really need it, but sometimes it's very handy to know how long the session will take. Anything else is disabled, just so I don't get distracted by, let's say, a track map or my session best times and laps. I don't need them. If I want to know my delta, I just use the race logic counter there, and if I need to know my lap, I can switch the lap counter. Also the MFD page on the bottom left is usually switched off. I don't need to know where my relatives are, because when I mean in practice it doesn't matter, and if I'm in a race, I know where I start, and I can kind of keep track in my head of where I'm at, and I don't really need to know my position anyways, because I just race as fast as I can. And yeah, so really just trying to minimize all the distractions from the head-up display. Yeah, I obviously have the radar enabled for close racing. I don't use the spotter. Yeah, that's all I have for my setup. Field of view is 45, I think, 44 or 45. Yeah, getting my first couple laps done in the Huracan ST right here on Silverstone. It's very similar to the Audi and the Huracan GT3 version, but it has a lot more body roll, and it's a bit trickier to get the power down on exit. But braking and corner entry and overall high-speed balance is very similar, and you can use a lot of that knowledge in terms of driving style coming from the GT3 car. First, when I leave the pits and do my first run, always is tire pressures. Yeah, just keep an eye on them, do a couple of laps, at least I'd say 5 laps, full flying push laps. We're not worrying about lap times yet, so you don't need to warm them up or save them in any sense. Just go out, push, and then see where you end up on the pressure side. And so far I'm seeing that my left rear is a bit too much pressure, and my front right is a bit too low, but that's usually the case in the aggressive presets. I never look at tire temperatures really. If you get the car stable to a point where your rears don't always slide, then you shouldn't really have a temperature issue. At least all the way up to, I'd say, 30 degrees outside air temperature. If you're above that, then yeah, you need to really calm down on the aggressive driving and save tires by driving. But in terms of setup adjustments, I never look at temperatures, always at pressures. That's just how we do it in real life as well. The pressure is the most important factor. The temperature is just gonna end up where it needs to be. I'm seeing so far that my brake discs are getting pretty blue, so immediately I need to know at least one click down on the brake ducts. So yeah, what I then do is just go back to pits, and yeah, so you don't want to stop on track or go back to the pits by driving into the pit lane. You just want to hit escape to see all the data, since we don't use any motec to really analyze the pressure curves and temperature curves. You have to do it this way. So 5 down on this side, 10 up on this side. I'm gonna go 10 up on this side, maybe even 11. We'll see where I'm end up here with a bit more aggressive driving, and then the left right rear is pretty good. I'm aiming for around 28, maybe a bit lower in the rear than in the front, just because of the way the tire behaves, and I want the rear to be a bit wider on the tire surface, and the front to be a bit more stable. But generally, I try to hit 28. Then we see the ABS settings. I mean, yeah, we can just turn them down real quick. As well, the TC is pretty important in this car. Usually in the Audi I run 2 or 3, but here it seems to have a bit of a different algorithm, so I need a higher number. I don't want to practice and do my setup run on an empty tank, because if you then put race fuel in, the car could behave completely different. So just keep it on, I don't know, 50 or 60 to get a good feel of where the car's gonna end up being. But yeah, in terms of overall setup adjustment procedure, I start with tires. Obviously, that's the first thing you need to adjust. I then go to brake ducts and reduce the venting, because yeah, they were too cold. And then I go back to alignment and caster settings. So I have a preference of how I want my wheel to feel. So I usually caster just for that a bit, to get a bit more heavy steering feel going through corners. Camber I then leave up for a later point where I need to really do some longer runs and see how the tire is going to wear down, and how the wear is going to affect the handling. For toe, I usually go for a bit more toe than the default setups. I'm just going to leave them here. I never run 0. I need the additional stability, so I don't really go any lower than these. Yeah, next comes the mechanical grip. First thing I always adjust is the brake bias. It is usually way too far to the front for my liking, and also for, you know, lap times. You want to have the best braking, and having it in the default setting, you get too much front ABS lock, so you have to put it to the rear regardless of how you like it, just for better lap times. In the Lambo and the Audi, I run around 55, so I just go for the same setting in this car. Next point on my list usually is the diff. I just up the value. I mean, you can look at the range there. We have a range of 20 to 300. I don't know why the default setting is so low, but you really have a lot of range to work with, and I suggest using it as well. It just stabilizes the rear axle, and at first you may think, oh no, I'm gonna get too much understeer everywhere, but believe me, the understeer really is gonna help you to push the car more. It's more stable in entry when trail braking and braking late, and we want to trail brake and have setting the bias to the rear means the rear is gonna maybe move a bit more when turning. So we really need higher numbers on the diff preload for the braking area, and then also for the on power procedure when exiting the turn. Having the preload high means the diff is going to make its job easier for the locking itself, and then you get more grip and better rotation on power. And I'm seeing that the wheel rates are very low. I don't know why the car is set up to be soft, but I think that making it a bit more reactive and making it a bit harder in the setting here in the wheel rate and spring is going to give us a bit more precision, and also high speed stability, because the car's not going to roll as much just because of the spring. Same goes for the anti-roll bar. I up them a bit to get a bit less roll. You'll notice when I really push the first couple of corners after T1, the fast left right handers, you need a very stable car there, and if the car's rolling left and right, then you don't get the precision you want to really nail those corners. I'm not going to touch the dampers yet. We will get into them later. Aero is also important for top speed in this case. We could reduce it by 2, that's what I did for Misano as well. But I don't think that we need to go any lower. The top speed difference shouldn't be too big. And I noticed that even though you can get higher top speeds running very low wing, in terms of lap times, you don't gain anything because you'll exit the corner. With high wing, you exit the corner a lot faster. So you don't need the top speed to get the good lap time. Right now we're on -4. I'm just gonna try to adjust it a bit again. Yeah, but I don't want to get any lower. Let's see where we end up. Obviously, the lower the number, the more understeery the setup is. Yeah, after just those basic adjustments, I'm just gonna go out and do a couple of laps, see if my tire pressures work out the way I wanted it to work out, and then come back in and see if we have to adjust anything else. I'll see you in a bit. So again, first thing, get the brakes up to temperature, because as soon as they have some temperature in them, they heat up the rim from the inside. And I get tire temperature without actually having to use up the tire. Very important corner on the track. We need all the rear stability you can get here to really throw it in. Right now, as you can see, I have a bit too much understeer going through those high-speed turns. We'll adjust it later. Very nervous rear still, going through the left and right-hander here. Trail braking, really not perfect yet. Brakes really are still too cold. You can see me adjust my steering going through the turn quite a bit, like this. It's just to feel the grip and see what the car is going to do, giving it more steering angle or less. It's all just to find out how the car is going to react to different situations. And getting used to the overall handling. Bit too much cutting there. Now that the pressures are up and the temperatures are up as well, overall grip is and balance is a lot better. At first I thought my rear is way too unstable on entry, and then I have too much on power understeer. But the rising pressures really helped. I think I'll have to keep it in 5th gear here. I want to do all this here, the left-hander flat, and I cannot really do it yet, so I have to adjust the high-speed aero balance a bit. Yeah, I'm thinking about even more preload to work against those situations. I just had entering the right-hander there, too much oversteer on the rear, and that really kills your trust in the car. You really want to get rid of it. Oh, too late. Braking too late and making mistakes like these really help to understand how the car is going to react in a situation that you didn't expect. And you don't need to think, oh shit, that's bad, I need to restart my lap, or I need to, you know, that was a mistake in a very bad sense. They usually help to understand how the car is going to react in a tricky situation, especially when racing against other people. So making those mistakes in practice is very helpful. So far so good. The car feels alright. I'm not happy with corner entry yet and trail braking. High speed stability like this seems alright. We can really push the car without having to worry about any oversteer, which is the most important. But situations like this, where you hit the brake and you want to switch directions, the rear just moves too quickly. Alright, that was a decent lap. Switching back to the pits to adjust tire pressures at first. It looks alright. We can lower the left rear, left right a bit. Other than that, I'd keep it that way. Gonna close the front brake duct as well because of tire pressures. If we look at the temperatures for now, we can use up to 80 or 90 degrees in the tire temperature range. So yeah, the front can need a bit more temperature. Lowering the PSI to adjust for the higher temperature, of course. And the rear seems alright, although the brake itself was getting pretty cold in the rear. I'm not going to close the duct again anymore because of the high temperatures in the tire already. Being on 100 degrees on the inside is more than safe. This is all within what the tire can handle. So we talked about corner entry and how to negate that entry oversteer when trail braking. Of course, we could now move the brake bias to the front, but that means we'll lose brake performance overall. So I don't want to do that. I can increase my preload a bit so that when the car's rotating slightly, the rear gets locked even more. So I do that by 30 Newton meters. We could also go for crazy things like very high front wheel rate, so the car's not going to dip to the front at all when braking. We can try to give it a lot more wing, so it's more stable under entry, but we really have to figure out what the problem was and then go from there. Looking at my problem right now in detail, I think that the corner entry oversteer only happened in mid to slow turns. So we don't need any aero changes in that sense. T1, for example, or the fast right-hander after the back straight, after the old pit lane. I didn't have any oversteer going into the fast turns, which is very nice and gives me a lot of stability. Looking at the slow speed entry and how to solve problems there, we have to look at the dampers. They really do the job when the car's transitioning between movements. And the transition time from being in a standstill to the acceleration is constant. That's where the dampers work. Same goes for when you steer the car. You go straight, for example, and with a steady velocity, and then you turn the wheel until your corner speed is very steady. The transition from going straight to until you reach your steady cornering speed is where the dampers work. So every time the movement of the car is not stable, you have to adjust the dampers. So let's say you have a very long turn and you go through the turn with the same speed. You don't have any movement in the car in that sense. Then you adjust the mechanical grip. But since we're now in the braking zone, when the car moves a lot, the weight transfers to the front, and we want to turn left or right, then we have to look at dampers. First thing, I usually adjust the rear rebound for the oversteer problem. We can put the number to, let's say, 20, so 5 clicks more. That means we reduce the velocity of which the damper extends. That way, when the car pitches forward, the rear tires will get pushed back to the ground slower. We can also increase the front bump to have the same effect at the front axle. The car is going to dip slower, especially if we could even adjust both here depending on if it's high speed corner entry oversteer or low speed. But by increasing the bump, you also get a more precise and reactive car at the front, which could then help the oversteer again. So it's really trying to find the middle ground. You're very safe usually with adjusting the rebound in terms of corner entry. Yeah, so rebound +5. Let's go for bump +1 just to try what's going to happen. We adjusted the preload, and I'm going to give it a bit more rake for the high speed understeer issue as well, and then go back out again. It's very important to not jump conclusions when testing in a normal practice session. Your tire pressures have to come up, your brake temperature has to go up, and thinking that, oh my god, I have too much of this, too little of this, immediately when going out can end up to misleading changes in the setup. So you really have to take your time and do a proper warm-up lap, and then maybe even 1 or 2 flying laps to then be able to comment on the changes you've made. So far so good. It seems like we haven't made it any worse, which is always good. I still feel like I can improve a lot by just getting more practice in, regardless of the setup. You definitely need 4th gears through there. 4th was quicker. Yeah, I still feel like there's a bit too much high-speed understeer. It's very stable for now, and you could totally race like this already. But when I think about optimal lap times, I feel like there's still a bit of time to be gained. So I'll try to make the car more reactive to the turn, so I can just get on the power earlier and don't have to lift as much. But yeah, hopefully I won't destroy anything else, any stability that I have in all the other turns, which I really need. Here, for example, it's the push understeer is on the edge of being too aggressive. But the stability is helping so much that I'm liking it a lot. And I'm still able to push the car around to my liking. I can make it rotate, just like at the apex of that turn I just passed, and getting the car to oversteer slightly. Yeah, a lot more stability on corner entry. Can really brake later and pitch the car in a lot more controlled. Very fun corner complex. Yeah, leaving it in 4th gear a lot longer there than the lap before, just to help with the stability. That was just too aggressive into the corner. I had to brake for too long. And my rear tires didn't like that at all. I really like the mid-speed corner balance, like the corners we just passed. This right here is still too much understeer. I'm not noticing any slow speed understeer or excessive slow speed understeer. The understeer we have here only comes from the aero balance, and we could really reduce it by just lowering the rear wing. But the balance through here is very nice, except for the last one, which is always tricky. The rear just snaps on you because of the bumps in the road and the sudden change of direction. Being smooth is very important there. I'm gonna try to decrease the high speed understeer a bit more. Thinking about dropping it all the way to 14. And then, what are we at here? Minus 4.6. So we need a lower number, or a higher number than that. So we go from 4.5 to 4.4. It's only a very small adjustment, but I don't want to lose any of the high-speed stability. I just want to make the car rotate a bit more. If I want to reduce on-power understeer after the apex, the on-power understeer is again transitioning from steady cornering to going straight, or going to the next relatively stationary movement of the car. We look at dampers again, and what happens when we accelerate, the car moves or shifts its weight to the rear. The front axle rises a bit and we lose front grip. What we can do is we can adjust the front rebound by reducing it by, let's say, 3 clicks. So the front will extend faster now. We will allow the spring to push the tire a bit quicker to the track. So when the car lifts up at the front, we get a bit more force onto the asphalt. We could also maybe try to add more rear bump as well. We could close the bump and then it'll move slower, but that could also shift the balance again when braking. So I don't want to touch that too much. Fast bumps I'm not going to adjust for now. They're mostly for hitting curbs, and we don't have to run any curbs here anyways I'm talking sausage curbs, and we avoid those here anyways. I talked about the low speed understeer and how I thought that there wasn't much of the low speed understeer, but too much corner entry oversteer. We could make the anti-roll bar in the front a bit stiffer to reduce the movement in the front when turning. Yeah, I don't want to make it too much, don't want to make it too understeery. So only 1 click and then see. Yeah, temperatures, well, we're hitting 80 now, which is great. Aero adjusted, rebound adjusted for the understeer on exit, anti-roll bar for corner entry stability a bit, and yeah, that's it. Let's see. So coming in onto the first flying lap, balance feels okay so far. Didn't break anything. I immediately noticed that the high-speed understeer is a lot less. And I really like the changes so far. Also coming into this turn here, you have a lot more stability because the front axle isn't gripping as much. Yeah, a lot more stable coming into these two turns here. I think we can even shift the aero balance a bit more to the front again. The understeer is better through high speed turns, but it's I think still not perfect. Yeah, we are using a lot more of the tire now because of the stability. You can see the tire pressures are rising in the rear because we're just going faster through all the turns. And because I'm sliding a bit too much. Yeah, this was anything but clean, and the lap times are still below 202, so I'm quite happy with the overall speed of the setup. Now it's just a question of me getting yeah, faster and more consistent, and maybe adjusting 1 or 2 more balance issues on the high speed. Maybe 1 or 2 clicks on the damper settings, depending on corner entry or corner exit, over or understeer on the rebounds. But other than that, I'm pretty happy. If we go at look at the tire pressures again, we can definitely lower the left rear by a bit, the right rear a bit as well. I mean, we don't need to drop them that far because otherwise the temperature will rise, and then yeah, we're not gaining anything. But so far it looks alright. Lap time wise, we are at a 209. We saw that the delta can show plus 1 or 2 tenths every now and then. So with with low fuel, optimum grip, and a lower track temperature, I'm saying that you're easily a second quicker than my lap time so far. I'm pretty happy with balance, which is the most important. I could maybe adjust the camber a bit to help corner entry stability even more. We could now start to try new stuff. We have a base setup, so this would be my base testing setup now. And then I could start to just use higher anti-roll bar settings in general to see if it helps the overall lap time. So I could run the car a bit stiffer to see if it helps the lap times. I could try to run a completely low aeros setting and adjust the ride height like this to see if it works. But for now, yeah, I'm quite happy. I hope you guys learned a bit of how I adjust my setups, and it's a lengthy process to learn and then also to execute. If you have any questions, just leave them down there in the comments, and yeah, I hope to see you all on track.